The moment I realized something was wrong with my marriage didn't come during an argument or a therapy session. It came on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, in a parking lot, with a phone that wasn't supposed to exist. At the time, I still believed we were trying to fix things. From the outside, my husband and I probably looked normal. We'd been married for 6 years, no kids yet, decent jobs, a small apartment we kept meaning to upgrade. But somewhere between long work hours and short conversations, we'd stopped being a couple and started being roommates who shared a bed. He wasn't cruel, he wasn't violent, he was just absent, always tired, always distracted, always on his phone. When I asked what was wrong, he'd say, "Nothing, I'm just stressed." When I tried to talk about us, he'd sigh and say, "Why do you always make everything so heavy?" So when I suggested therapy, it felt like the adult thing to do, the responsible thing. I wanted to save our marriage. Before it became something we only talked about in the past tense, we found a couples therapist through an online directory. A woman in her 40s, calm voice, kind eyes, framed certificates on the wall behind her desk. The first session, she smiled warmly and said things like, "You both clearly care about each other, and conflict usually means there's still something worth fighting for." I remember feeling hopeful walking out of that office, like maybe we weren't broken, maybe we were just out of practice, but after a few sessions, something started to feel off. Whenever I brought up how distant he'd become, the therapist would tilt her head and say, "Do you think you might be interpreting his stress as rejection?" When I said it hurt that he stayed on his phone all night, she'd smile gently and respond, "Some people regulate anxiety digitally, it doesn't always mean avoidance." She always had a reason. One session I said, "It feels like I'm begging him to be present." She nodded and said, "Sometimes intensity can make a partner retreat. What would it look like if you pulled back a little too?" I walked out that day feeling like I'd been scolded for wanting my husband. Meanwhile, he started sounding prepared. He used phrases I'd never heard him say before. "I feel like my efforts aren't being acknowledged. I shut down when I feel criticized." He'd sit up straighter in his chair and speak calmly while I stumbled through tears. Once, after I cried, she looked at him and said, "You're doing a good job staying grounded." Then she turned to me and said, "You might want to practice self-soothing when emotions spike." I nodded like a student being corrected. Outside therapy, nothing changed. He still took calls in the other room, still stayed up scrolling, still flinched when I touched his shoulder unexpectedly. But in that office, he looked like the reasonable one. And I looked like the problem. By the third month, I was exhausted. Not from fighting, but from trying to explain feelings that kept getting translated into flaws. The day everything changed started with something stupid and ordinary. My phone battery died while I was running errands. I was in a grocery store parking lot with a cart full of melting ice cream and no way to call him to ask where he'd parked. I walked over to the driver's side, planning to grab the charger from the console. When I opened the door, I noticed the passenger seat was pushed forward, like someone had been sitting there recently. Under it, something black caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a wallet. I bent down and pulled it out. It was a phone. Not his phone. That one was always in his hand. This one was older, no case, no lock screen photo, just a blank black screen reflecting my confused face. My first thought was work. Maybe his job gave him a second phone. That would explain it. Almost put it back, but something about the way it was hidden made my stomach tighten. Not in the console, not in the glove box. Tucked away like it wasn't supposed to be found. I pressed the power button. It turned on. No passcode, no wallpaper, no notifications. It felt wrong, like opening a drawer that isn't yours and finding nothing inside except a secret. I opened the contacts. There was only one number saved. No name, just a number. I stared at it for a long time, trying to tell myself this was nothing. That I was overreacting again. That this was exactly the kind of thing the therapist warned me about, assuming meaning where there might be none. But curiosity won. I tapped it, and there it was. Our couple's therapist. Her office number was burned into my brain from months of appointments. I recognized it instantly. My mouth went dry. I locked the phone and sat back in the seat, heart pounding like I'd just run. My mind raced through excuses. Maybe he called her for advice. Maybe she suggested a private line for scheduling. Maybe this was normal and I just didn't know. But none of those answers explained why it was hidden. Why only her number? Why not use his regular phone? I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself to breathe. I told myself I hadn't even seen the messages yet. But the car suddenly felt too small, the sunlight too bright. My chest tight like I'd swallowed something sharp. I didn't open the messages, not yet, because deep down, I already knew whatever was on that screen was going to explain everything that hadn't made sense for months, and I wasn't sure I was ready to understand it. I sat in the car longer than I meant to, the phone resting on my thigh like it might burn through my jeans. I kept thinking about her voice in my head. Don't assume the worst. Check your interpretations. Stay grounded. It felt strange that even now, standing alone in a parking lot, I was still trying to follow her rules. Eventually, I unlocked the phone again. There was only one message thread, her number. The most recent message read, "Did it go smoothly today?" Below it, his reply, "Yeah, she calmed down." My throat tightened. I scrolled. The messages went back weeks. Not constant, not romantic, but steady. Conversations that didn't look like scheduling or professional notes. They looked like planning. "Keep your tone neutral. Don't defend yourself too much, or she'll escalate. Redirect the conversation to work stress if she brings up emotional distance. She needs reassurance, not details." It felt like I was reading instructions for dealing with a difficult customer instead of a wife. One message from him said, "She thinks you're helping us." And her reply came quickly. "That's important. She needs to feel safe or she won't cooperate." Cooperate. The word made my stomach turn. They weren't flirting. There were no hearts or pet names, but there was intimacy in a different way. A quiet alliance, a shared language about me. I kept scrolling, my hands shaking. "She's starting to notice things," he wrote. "Then slow down," she replied. "Consistency is key. Sudden changes make people suspicious." Slow down what? I pressed my lips together and leaned my head against the steering wheel. Every therapy session replayed in my mind like a badly dubbed movie. The time I said, "It feels like he's hiding things from me," and she smiled gently and said, "Sometimes fear looks like secrecy." The time I asked him why he took calls outside and she said, "Privacy isn't the same as betrayal." The time she looked at me and said, "You might want to examine why uncertainty makes you anxious." Each moment had felt reasonable then, supportive even. Now it felt rehearsed. There was one message that made my chest ache more than the others. He had written, "She cried again today," and she replied, "That means she still cares. Use that to show her you're trying without actually changing too much yet." I locked the phone and stared at the dashboard. I could hear my own breathing, loud and uneven. My hands felt numb. When I finally drove home, it was like watching myself from far away. I put groceries in the fridge. I kicked off my shoes. I sat on the couch and stared at nothing. My husband came home later, kissed my cheek, and asked, "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. The word tasted strange. That night, I lay next to him and scrolled through the messages again in the dark. I noticed how careful they were. How nothing directly said, "lie." How everything lived in that gray space of guidance and suggestion. It was clean enough to deny and dirty enough to matter. No therapist should be privately advising one spouse on how to manage the other. And no husband should need a hidden phone to talk to the person who's supposed to help both of us. Over. Next few days, I became hyper-aware. Every time he spoke, I wondered if she'd written it. Every apology sounded scripted. Every calm answer felt practiced. When he said, "I'm trying," I heard her voice in it. At our next session, I barely spoke. I watched them. When he hesitated before answering a question, he glanced at her. Not obvious, just enough. She gave a small nod. When I said I felt distant from him, she turned to me and said, "Distance can be a protective response to pressure. Maybe the question is why closeness feels urgent to you." It felt like being gently pushed back into a corner with a pillow. I said, "It feels like you always understand him better than me." She smiled. "I'm just trying to translate between you." Translate. I nodded and swallowed the urge to scream. After the session, she walked me to the door and touched my arm lightly. "You're making progress. It's not easy work." In the car, my husband asked, "Do you feel better?" I looked out the window and said, "I think I need some space to think." That night, I forwarded the entire message thread to myself. I didn't know what I planned to do with it yet. I just knew I needed proof in case I tried to talk myself out of what I'd seen. I barely slept. My mind kept circling the same questions. Were they having an affair? Had they ever met alone? How long had this really been going on? The next morning, his phone was on the counter while he showered. I stared at it, tempted, but I didn't touch it. I already had what mattered. By the third day, pretending felt heavier than knowing. I waited until after dinner. The TV was on low. The dishes were still in the sink. It felt ordinary enough to break something important. I took the second phone from my bag and placed it between us on the table. His eyes dropped to it and his face changed. Not confusion, recognition, and fear. I said his name quietly. He didn't answer. I slid the phone closer and asked, "Do you want to tell me why this exists?" His mouth opened, then closed again. He rubbed his palms on his jeans like he was trying to wipe something off them. For the first time in months, he looked unprepared, and that scared him. Because whatever he said next, there was no therapist to coach him through it. He didn't touch the phone at first. He stared at it like it might explode. "I can explain," he said. That sentence alone felt like a confession. I folded my arms across my chest, not to look strong, but to stop myself from shaking. "Then explain." He picked up the phone slowly and turned it over in his hands. "It's just for therapy stuff." I let out a short laugh that didn't sound like it came from me. "You needed a secret phone for therapy?" He looked down. "I didn't want to make you anxious." "You didn't want me to know," I said. "Those are different." The TV laughed in the background, some canned joke from a sitcom as if nothing important was happening. "I read the messages," I said. His shoulders dropped. "All of them." He closed his eyes. "She was helping me." "Helping you do what?" I asked. "Lie better?" "Helping me communicate." "No," I said. "Helping you avoid telling me the truth." He rubbed his face. "You get upset so fast. She said I should pace things." "She said I was sensitive," I replied. "She said to keep things consistent so I wouldn't notice. That's not pacing. That's planning." He didn't deny it. "Are you sleeping with her?" I asked. He looked up fast. "No, never." "Have you met her outside the office?" He hesitated, and that hesitation cracked something open inside me. "Once," he said, "for coffee." My throat tightened. "When?" "A few weeks ago." "Why?" "She said it might help me talk freely, without you there." I stared at him. "You already talked to her without me there." He swallowed. "She said you weren't ready to hear everything." The words felt like a slap. "So the two of you decided what I could handle," I said. "Together?" "I didn't mean for it to turn into this," he said. "I just didn't want to lose you." "And this was your plan to keep me?" I asked. "By building a secret life with another woman?" "It wasn't like that." I held up the phone. "You called her after we fought. You asked her what to say to me. You let her decide which parts of you I was allowed to see." His voice broke. I was scared. For a second, I almost felt it. The part of me that still loved him wanted to believe fear explained everything. "I thought about forgiving you," I said quietly. "For 1 second." He looked up, hope flashing across his face. "But then I realized you didn't just lie to me," I continued. "You recruited someone to help you do it." That hope collapsed. "I trusted her," I said. I cried in front of her. I told her things I've never said out loud, and she used them to help you hide from me. "I didn't know it was wrong," he said. "Yes, you did," I replied. "That's why you hid it." He started crying then. Big, shaking sobs. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "And you kept doing it." I picked up my bag. "I'm calling her." His head snapped up. "Please don't." I deserved to hear her explain herself. I went into the bedroom and shut the door before he could follow me. My hands shook as I dialed the office number. Hello? Her voice was calm and familiar. It's me, I said. His wife. There was a pause. Is everything okay? I found the phone, I said. Why are you coaching my husband behind my back? Silence. I was supporting him, she said carefully, by telling him what not to say to me. I was trying to keep things stable. Stable for who? For the marriage. No, I said. For him. She inhaled slowly. I didn't think you were ready for certain truths. You don't get to decide that, I said. Did you meet him outside sessions? Another pause. Yes? For what? To talk. Over coffee. It was professional. Then why hide it? She didn't answer. You told him I was sensitive, I said. You told him to slow down so I wouldn't notice. You taught him how to manage me. I crossed a boundary, she admitted quietly. You destroyed one, I said. I hung up. When I went back into the living room, he was sitting on the couch, eyes red, like a child who'd been caught. What did she say? He asked. That she crossed a boundary? I replied. That's what she calls betrayal. He said he never meant for it to go this far, that he just needed someone to talk to, that he felt trapped between my emotions and her advice. I stood there and felt something shift. There's a moment when you stop trying to fix things and start trying to understand why you stayed so long. That was mine. I'm done with therapy, I said. We can find someone else, he said quickly. With who? I asked. Your partner in secrets? He didn't answer. I packed a bag that night and went to my sister's house. I didn't take much. Clothes, toiletries, and the second phone. Lying in a bed that wasn't mine, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how I trusted a stranger with my marriage because she had certificates on her wall. I thought about how easy it was to confuse calm with honesty, and I knew the next step wasn't about my husband anymore. It was about what to do with the woman who helped him betray me. The next morning, I sat at my sister's kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't taste. The second phone was in my bag. I hadn't turned it on again, but it felt heavier now, like it carried more than messages. I opened it one last time and scrolled. Slowly, like I was reading a confession. I took screenshots of everything. The coaching, the warnings, the lines he'd practiced, the moment she told him to slow down so I wouldn't notice. I sent them to myself again, just in case. Then I searched her name. Her license number came up, her practice address, a professional board that regulated therapists in our state. I stared at the complaint form longer than I expected to. It asked for dates, evidence, a description of what happened. I gave them everything. When I hit submit, I didn't feel powerful. I felt empty, like I'd finished carrying something heavy and didn't know what to do with my hands. My husband kept texting, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I still love you. Please come home. I read them and didn't answer. A week later, the board contacted me. They said they were opening an investigation. They asked for the screenshots. I sent them. They asked if I would make a statement. I said yes. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because I kept thinking about the next woman who might sit on that couch and believe that office was safe. My husband finally came to see me. He looked smaller than I remembered, like guilt had taken up space inside him. I messed up, he said. Yes, I replied. I trusted her. And I trusted you, I said. We're not talking about the same thing. He cried. He said therapy was the only place he felt understood, that he didn't know how to tell me he was unhappy. That he felt trapped between keeping me calm and telling the truth. I believed he was unhappy. I just didn't believe that hiding behind another woman's authority was the same as honesty. I don't know who you are anymore, I told him, and I don't want to learn. He asked if we could take a break. I said I wanted a divorce. The word didn't sound dramatic. It sounded like relief. The investigation took months. During that time, I moved into a small apartment of my own. I slept on the floor the first night because my mattress hadn't arrived yet. My back hurt, but my chest didn't. Eventually, the board ruled that she had violated ethical boundaries. They said her private communication with my husband and her advice about concealing information crossed professional lines. Her license was suspended, her practice closed. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like something dangerous had been taken out of circulation. My husband tried once more to convince me I was making a mistake. He said we'd both failed. He said I was throwing away years. I said, you didn't cheat on me with another woman's body. You cheated on me with her authority? He didn't understand, but I did. Months later, I saw her in a grocery store. No office, no calm voice guiding anyone. Just a woman buying vegetables like the rest of us. She recognized me and looked away. I didn't stop her. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Life didn't collapse after my marriage ended. It kept going. I still wake up. I still go to work. I still buy groceries. I just don't sit in rooms where my reality gets edited anymore. For a long time, I thought therapy failed us. Now, I know it wasn't therapy. It was the people. If you've ever felt like something in your life was being quietly rewritten without your consent, trust that feeling. Sometimes the biggest betrayals don't come with shouting. They come with calm voices and good intentions. And if you stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. Stories like this exist because someone else might be listening and thinking, that sounds like me. If that's you, you're not alone, and there's more truth waiting than you think.